Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Kim Brown. You hear a lot about companies doing stock buybacks. What is a stock buyback? Well, it's when a company purchases its own stock, therefore reducing the number of outstanding shares on the open market. Is this a sham for the flim-flam? Well, we're about to find out. Today, we're joined with one of our regular contributors, Professor Bill Black. He is an associate professor of economics and law at the University of Missouri at Kansas City. Bill, thanks again for joining us.
Good to be back.
Bill, break it down. What's up with the company stock buyback? Is this something that is actually good for the average stock owner, or is this something that helps to insulate those who already have a lot of money?
Neither of the above, but it does help enrich CEOs in particular. So to put it in context, as people have seen, there's this paradox. We are at very close to what economists traditionally define as full employment. People like me wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but that's how the conventional economists would usually say. But at the same time, we have many millions of people who have become so discouraged that they've withdrawn for looking for jobs, and therefore they're not counted as unemployed. And so compared to Europe, we've had a dramatically better recovery. Compared to past recoveries from serious recessions, we've had a slow and fairly poor one, in large part because we gave up on stimulus way too soon. And what we're seeing is that productivity, which is how much a given amount of labor and capital produces, is actually been negative, falling. And of course, it's supposed to go in the other direction. As we get these technological developments and all those wonderful things out of Silicon Valley that allow us to handle information more efficiently and produce things more efficiently, productivity is supposed to rise, and that's a good thing. It both brings growth and it brings the ability to have wages rise without causing inflation, which is a very sweet spot, obviously, and could be really good for the working class and the middle class recovering, and we're seeing it go the opposite direction. So the question is why? If you're a conservative Republican, a Trumpian, you would say it's because of those terrible regulations. And banks are simply not willing to lend. But here we see a very different story, because when you buy back stock as a corporation, of course, you take your own cash and you buy your shares in the open market. And that reduces your cash and it reduces your capital. And that's a pretty strange thing. After all, we've got this recovery in terms of unemployment. Why aren't we hiring more workers? Why aren't we doing more research and development so that we could grow in the future, get those technological advances, stop having negative productivity? None of those things are happening in large part because of the stock buybacks. So instead of taking this capital, investing it in good things, either new plant and equipment, which would, of course, lead to people being hired and hired for better jobs, not the part-time barkeep type of thing that has been the quintessential job in this recovery, or better yet, long-term thought, research and development, the thing that's going to bring us productivity gains over the next 20, 50 years. Why doesn't it happen? Well, in large part because senior executives are paid most of the money they get in compensation on bonuses, and many of those bonuses are tied to stock price. And in any event, most of those bonuses these days come in the form of stock. So if I'm the CEO, I want the stock price to be higher. Well, I could get the stock price higher by running a really good business, but that's hard and it might or might not work. But I control the ability to buy back, and they are buying back hundreds of billions of dollars a year in stock. Well, if I do that, of course, I'm adding to demand, and as you said in the introduction, reducing supply of shares. I'm taking them out of the market. Well, what's supposed to happen and what typically does happen, at least in the short term, the stock price, well, of course, the stock price goes up. Hey, my stock's worth a whole lot more, and maybe my bonus is triggered. It's all great stuff for me, but it's ruining America in terms of its productivity. So we need to fundamentally change executive compensation, which is absolutely perverse. Many of our reports, we've explained in the past how it produces fraud, but even when it doesn't produce fraud, it produces this disaster of declining productivity and failure to have a robust expansion of good jobs.
Well, Bill, we certainly appreciate this latest installment of your report. You should definitely investigate more about stock buybacks and whether or not it is something that is actually good for the American economy. We've been speaking with Bill Black. He's an associate professor of economics at law at the University of Missouri at Kansas City. Bill, thanks so much for joining us once again.
Thank you.
You're watching the Real News Network.